Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, a recruiting specific podcast on Red Raider Sports. As always, he's Ben Golan. I'm Matt Clare. Before we jump into things, we want to thank our title sponsor, Carnley Properties. Give Clayton Carnley and his team a call if you have any needs in the real estate in the greater Austin metro area. It doesn't matter if it's a loft in the city, a house in the burbs, or even some ranch farmland outside the city. His team will get you taken care of. They're great Red Raiders. They're on Red Raider Sports. We'll post their information here under the player. And with that being said, Ben, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Matt. Let's hope that a certain quarterback does not need a new property in the Austin area, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, gosh, we'll get into that in a minute. Just a big saga, man. I mean, it's honestly, I've covered tech recruiting a long time. I've never seen anything like this, right? I mean, I think even if you take that storyline out of the picture, of course, we're referring to former South Lake quarterback, Ohio State transfer, Quinn Ewers, former #1 player in the nation, right? So huge storyline. But I mean, even without that, you have so much fluidity in the coaching world and what that means to the recruiting trail. I think Tech saw some of that over the weekend, both the good and the bad of that. I guess, let's get the bad out of the way and then we'll jump into the rest, Ben. And then I think we can cover Ewers for a little bit and then round it out with kind of what we're expecting to see so far for official visitors, this weekend. Just as a reminder to folks, again, all these things we talk about, you can find, on every, prospect subject, you can find stories and more information on our site. There's a full message board with thousands of users, a lot of fun, but again, redraidersports.com. So we'll give you a little bit here, but certainly not the whole thing. Let's start with Jason Llewellyn. I think that's the easiest part, had a lot of great things to say about Texas Tech. 4-star Alito tight end, kind of a no-brainer, to recruit him given the scenario at OU over the past week. But just as fast as OU didn't have a coach, they had one a week later. Llewellyn visited, said a lot of great stuff, Ben, but ultimately he recommitted to the Sooners, I believe, Monday night. We're recording this on Wednesday night. So, Ben, I mean, I don't know how much we really even need to talk about that, but again, they're in this sort of Boilermaker situation where it's, signing day is literally a week from today. So they've got to make moves on some of these guys and try to go down and see what's behind door number 2, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good shot. If you have a chance to get the guy on campus, you do. He has a girlfriend, softball player at Tech, but I think once OU, they kept their tight ends coach, John Finley. I think that was kind of the decision maker. He's going to stay part of their staff. So, but again, it was worth a shot. It's a 4-star. You go toe to toe with Oklahoma. You're probably going to lose more often than you win. That's just the reality. And, you move on to the next target. Tech still has 2 outstanding freshman tight ends. So, we'll see what they do there.
Yeah, no. And, who knows what other targets will be there. But again, kind of like we said, the story begins and ends that you got to take that shot. I think, a lot of people made the connection that his girlfriend's a softball player at Texas Tech. I mean, I think she spent time around the coaches and, tweeted about, how great they are and all that. So, I don't know, a little bit of sunshine out of that situation. But I think, the other uncommitted guys that we want to transition to, 2 teammates from Arlington Seguin. You had athlete Xavier Bryce. He's a longtime OU commitment. And then, of course, you have his teammate, offensive tackle Quentin Harris, who is a big, 6'8", 300-something pound guy. I've never seen him in person, but definitely, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a 2-star guy on tape to me. And clearly the offer sheet doesn't reflect that either. He's a longtime SMU commitment. He had a lot of great things to say about Coach Kenny Perry and the conversation that he had with Coach McGuire before leaving the visit. And I don't know, with a lot of these kids, like I mentioned, it's such a compressed, recruitment or situation to where, ultimately, it's a young man who's still verbally committed to SMU, officially visiting Texas Tech. Next week will be at TCU. He's going to just not sign this month. And then in January, he's going to visit SMU once they have their staff put together. So, all the relationship stuff and the visit aside, it's still someone you're going to have to compete with until next February 2nd. With Xavier Bryce, I do believe he still wants to make a decision He's going to be at Texas this weekend. Of course, he had a lot of great things to say about his visit too. Both of those interviews are on our site with full quotes. And so, again, it's a situation where, as well as the visit went, you look at the timing of all of it, and both of those kids being on other campuses next week, it's hard to really gauge, where the coaches are at, or how things really went until, of course, with Harris not signed until February, with Rice still considering signing, you're basically battling Texas and Oklahoma, and TCU offered him as well. And I'm certain other schools are reaching out. So that kind of covers the uncommitted guys. Ben, anything you wanted to add about those?
Well, just, on Quentin Harris, he had an existing relationship with Kenny Perry. Obviously, he was the special teams guy. He's a big, former DFW high school coach. So, I just thought it was interesting. You look at, you think about relationships. Well, I'm looking at his O-line coach at Arlington Seguin, and he quote tweeted the hire of Coach Finch today, and he said this is a great hire. The new tech staff is fire. So could he potentially help with that? I know he also trains with the same O-line trainer, Caleb Rogers and Jacoby Jackson. Can't think of his name right now. Oh, Coach Zach. So, I mean, we're both familiar with him. So a lot of relationships there. And again, the athlete, Xavier Bryce, who's committed to Oklahoma and visiting Texas, again, those are the type of guys that you shoot for, and, we'll see what happens. The only other uncommitted guy, and I actually haven't had a chance to speak with him yet, is Isaiah Smith. He's committed to SMU also, but another Kenny Perry relationship there. So we've been trying to contact him, reach out, haven't yet, but we will, and we'll see. Signing days a week from today. So he's another one to keep an eye on.
Yep. Absolutely. And, of course, you had a bunch of the commits in town too. They all had, great things to say. I'm not going to go through those one by one. Of course, Tech, loses a commit. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but Jocelyn Malaska, when your entire coaching staff is gone and all these new guys are coming in, I mean, even as we record this, nothing's quote unquote official on your defensive coordinator, but, you could see why he would flip over to Oklahoma and, just wish the young men. Utah. What did I say? Oklahoma? I don't know. Just so used to saying that. Anyway, flips over to Utah. They have an excellent DB coach. Obviously, they did pretty well this season. So makes a lot of sense. And again, just best of luck to him. Great young man. Loved watching his commit video and hearing about his story. So, hopefully one day we'll hear more from him. But, Ben, kind of that kind of covers this past official visit weekend. There's a lot more to cover, from kids that maybe aren't visiting, from new coaching hires, but let's spend, I don't know, let's try to cap it at 5 minutes, because I feel like everyone, including us, has just been pressing refresh or checking text and talking to like dozens of people when it comes to Quinn Ewers. I mentioned it earlier, former South Lake quarterback, Ohio State transfer. If you don't know the name and you're listening to this podcast, I'd be very surprised. All that to say, number one recruit in the nation. And all of a sudden, I think we're all hanging out. What was it? Sunday night, maybe? I don't know what night it was. And Pete Thamel just tweets, "Hey, Quinn Ewers is transferring. He's looking at Texas A&M and Texas Tech." And we're all like, huh? And so again, the Texas Tech football account tweeted this tonight, that it's been 1 month since Joey McGuire's been hired. And that to me seems kind of wild, because it's been so quick. It's been so rapid. And, I think you had football on the weekends to distract you kind of from some of the stuff that was going on. And you just knew that early on, you weren't going to get updates. You weren't going to get a DC. You weren't going to get an OC. And now some of those things are starting to fall in place. And I guess reading it at the moment, you thought, okay, well, maybe Joey McGuire knows him, right? Maybe there's some connection there. At a very high level, and with knowing what we've reported, clearly he was on campus, right? Mm-hmm. He works out at the same place as Pat Mahomes. I did confirm through their trainer, Bobby Stroop, that it's more than a just kind of worked out together a few times thing. They do have a friendship. And then in terms of Zach Kitley becoming the offensive coordinator over the span of that time as well, we're told that they were able to cross paths while he was in Lubbock. And that, as we record this on Wednesday night, they had an in-home visit. So, I mean, not only are you in the mix, you're squarely in the mix. And I mean, I guess I'll just kind of paint that picture, Ben. The only last thing I'll say is clearly Texas is Texas. And I don't think anybody in the conversation on our website or even nationally really disputes that, right? They're a blue blood program, makes the most millions of dollars per year per USA Today. We all know all the things. But he was committed to the former staff and, decided to go to Ohio State. The byline is that, homesick, wanted to find a different fit. And, the more and more that this goes on, it just seems like some of those connections has Tech in the mix, and Tech is in a win-win situation, Ben, because you get him, wow, great. Tech is in like the national college football news for whatever, length of time, right? Definitely now and then before the season starts. And, if you don't get him, hey, so what, right? You had him on campus, you had the in-home visit, you put your best foot forward. The reason I mentioned Texas and the logo and the national, prominence, et cetera, whatever we want to call it, is that everything from that side is just, oh, well, we're going to get him because Texas is better than Tech. And we're going to offer him this $2 to $3 million NIL deal. And, me and you,
First round money.
yeah, me and you a month ago were covering, 9 commits over the span of, 9 months. Right. And so we're like, yeah, $2 million NIL contract. Okay. I mean, hey, we'll believe it when we see it, right? We expect the unexpected in recruiting, but I mean, there's just so many things, Ben. What has just been your general takeaway from this whole process that's transpired over the past 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, you mentioned, McGuire's only been here a month, and it's just, so impressive how he's able to, put Tech in this kind of position where I just don't know. I mean, if that was even possible, but I think Zach Kitley is a big deal to all of this. Obviously, you see, the kind of numbers this offense put up. Bailey Zappi is about to break the all-time record for yards in a season. Kitley, again, the connection there with Mahomes and Ewers too, just all, linking up there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I think you have a pretty good quarterback room as it is. If you get Ewers, do a couple of guys leave, I would expect that probably. But I mean, it's something you have to do. I mean, this guy is a generational talent, number one player in the country, and like you said, he would put you in the national conversation. Would bring pretty, rumors that he'd bring pretty good players with him as well. Which I would probably expect to be true. So, yeah, we sit here. It's Wednesday night. He just had his in-home with Kitley. He's got a visit to Texas this weekend. I expect we'll probably hear some more news, maybe after, and then, until then, it's kind of the wave, right? Every day. If you would have asked me on Sunday, I think I was pretty confident that Tech was going to get him. You ask me right now, I'm probably closer to 50-50. So, we'll see. The rumors of the $3+ million offer, or is it playing time, or is it the system? These are all things that Quinn, Ewers has to take into consideration. And I'm not sitting, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to right after we get off the Zoom, I'm not going to call him and ask him, hey, that's just not going to happen. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those deals where, yeah, it's not like that. We don't have a personal relationship with them, and it's not your standard situation. Again, I think that's where the story stops and ends. Is it would be tremendous. I don't buy the idea that like people are going to quote unquote follow him. I think that's a bad way of saying it. But knowing that he's going to be the quarterback and knowing the offense that's coming in, would that be attractive to receivers? Yeah, that's sure. That makes sense. But I mean, look, I think that Tech's put themselves, as best as possible into a situation that they may not have ever thought they would be in. There's some reports that that they've reached out to Nick Evers, the Florida decommit quarterback out of Flower Mound. And, there's also conflicting reports that maybe they weren't included in this long list. So I think it's all interesting because in the same list of schools, Texas has reached out to him. And then what's not talked about in all this is that Texas has a, top 50 4-star quarterback prospect that's been committed forever. And I don't know. I mean, even if you say you want to take 2 quarterbacks, okay, sure. Maybe that works for Nick Evers, but I mean, I don't understand how that works for Ewers if, all these other things about, wanting to understand the quarterback room or this, that, and the other. Again, I think it can all be true, or it can all be just, believe what you want to believe. I think the only people that really know are the young man and his family. I think they're keeping their circle pretty small there. But anyway, wildly fascinating. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. There's some sort of NLI possibilities through Texas Tech, but like I mentioned earlier, I mean, we would just be speculating.
Well, just to tie it back to Tech, I think we all get excited. We see the top player in the country. Well, look back to last year. Baron Morton was probably one of the top quarterback signees in Tech school history, and he's still a freshman, right? So, whether Ewers does come or doesn't, I still think you're in pretty good hands. I think Morton would absolutely kill it in a Zach Kitley system as well. So I mean, we'll see. I just think getting the Kitley hire, if you would have asked me like last week or whenever the Ewers news broke, if I could have, you had to have Kitley. I think that you got that. He's your offensive coordinator. I think things will be fine offensively.
Yeah. I mean, I think things will be fine offensively anyway. I mean, I'd like to remind everyone that, Kitley, obviously learned under Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
He's a sharp mind. He's, was just voted the 24/7 sports offensive coordinator of the year. The numbers that Zappy put up both at HBU and now Western Kentucky, I mean, they're undeniable, right?
Yeah.
And that's a kid who I believe was like a low 2-star out of golly, I was going to say Beaumont, but that's not right. Victoria, Texas. And, to me, you go from Pat Mahomes, who was criminally underrated, and everybody says, well, he didn't win in college or didn't do this. I mean, he still made some spectacular plays that are still, highlight level plays today. The game of him and Baker, going against each other is legendary for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And so like you look at that progression. I mean, just think of what he could do with a kid that is that talented. And I only saw him once. I don't pride myself on being some sort of evaluator, never have. I just sort of report and try to stay out in front of things. But ultimately the kid, everything you read about him is true, right? I mean, I was at the Elite 11 regional here in DFW, and the arm strength, the different arm angles, just his ability, like he's just calm, cool, and collected. I mean, I think in that audio that I sent you guys, I mean, I literally never thought I would write a story about him because
Right.
at the time he was committed to Ohio State and he was the number one player in the nation. I was there. Just want to say I had talked to him. So maybe one day when he's in the NFL, like some of these other guys, I can say, that,
Sure.
that I was there. And, there's a ton of talented quarterbacks there that day. I think in the audio I sent you, he's like, I don't like talking about myself. I mean, he's got a Bible verse tatted on his forearm, from everything that I've heard from his coaches and whatnot. He's popular, outgoing guy, but he's also part of FCA and stuff like that. So again, I think a lot of people post and assume things about a kid in his situation, but it's a completely unprecedented situation, 100,000%, and even people on our board are like, he's afraid of the competition or he's this or he's that, I mean, I don't know. And I think people get caught up in this a lot, right? Even I saw some media members saying, we've got what we need here. We don't need a, transfer and this, that, and the other. It's like a year ago, you took Tyler Shuck. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is kind of the reality of college football now. So anyway, wildly interesting because I mean, this is a young man with his whole college career ahead of him.
Yep. Yeah. 2 career snaps and look at the battle to get him millions of dollars.
I mean, the last thing I'll say on that, we probably spent more than 5 minutes, but we kept it pretty brief. What would it say? I guess it's already a reality with the NLI and the thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what does it say if a kid like that ends up with I mean, let's just say it's somewhere in between what we've seen reported, and it's $1.5 million, $2 million. I mean, what does it say about college football when coaches are getting 10-year contracts for $10+ million a year and the prospects are, I guess, nobody thought it was squeaky clean before. I mean, but now that it's legal, like, I mean, there's some people that watch this podcast that won't make as much as a Texas offensive lineman next year with this program they've set up. I mean, that to me it's kind of bananas, right?
Yeah, no doubt. But again, I don't quite understand the rules, like what's legal, what's not legal. You can't offer a guy to come play somewhere, right? I think that's illegal, but somehow it's just out there like that, and everyone's just cool with it. No, I think if Tech was in a position to have those resources and offer the top prospect a couple million to come play, I don't think anyone watching this would complain. So it's just the reality. But yeah, I mean, the game's definitely changed forever. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we know about the Texas Tech offensive line has an NIL deal, with Cody Campbell and Double Eagle. So again, Tech's in there too, in that market.
Nope, no doubt. Well, I mean, I think we're going to see what happens. Latest greatest is he's going to potentially visit Texas this weekend with the decision after.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if it's Wednesday night, if another couple days go by, and the thing's over. Who knows? I mean, I feel like he's been to Austin. He's met with the coaches. I don't that one, makes sense and then doesn't, but we'll see. I think that it's wildly interesting for a reason, and we'll keep you guys updated as soon as we have info. Again, in-home visit with the Tech coaches on Wednesday night. So certainly more to come there. So Ben, you want to kind of take us, you maybe want to take us through the weekend that we have so far on confirmed visitors. And well, I guess we can go ahead and if you want to maybe introduce the two newest, Emmett Jones and Zarnell Fitch, and then maybe kind of how that parlays into what we're seeing on the weekend visitor list.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned, as of now, Tech, has a full staff. I would say the two, hires the only two hires that haven't been confirmed are Tim DeRuyter, defensive coordinator, and Marcel Yates, DBs, but those are both, highly rumored or likely to happen, depending on where, you go look at Feldman's Twitter or Football Scoop or our site. We've reported those. So, Emmett Jones, coming over from Kansas, everyone's familiar with him. He, big time recruiter in DFW. And you look ahead to this weekend, well, Jordan Neighbors, who, and again, this probably doesn't go all the way to Emmett because Neighbors was interested in Tech even before the Jones hire, but Rockwell Heath, he's a Baylor commit. We expect him to take his official visit this weekend. And, I think things look good for the Red Raiders there. I think he has a great relationship with James Blanchard, director of recruiting. And so we'll see there. And then defensive linemen, two more visitors are coming in. The big one, Joseph Adedier, I say that right?
I'm gonna say you nailed it because I'm not gonna try to say it.
T-
It is a little different. I say Joseph Adedire is how I've been saying it.
Okay, yeah. TCU commit Zarnell Fitch, defensive line coach coming over from TCU, and this is a 4-star prospect from Mansfield Summit. Borderline. Is he in the Rivals 250? Might be just outside of it.
I want to say he's right outside of it, but I think tomorrow they release outside the 250. I haven't followed all of that, but regardless, if you put on his tape, I mean, this is to get
he's a monster.
Yeah, to get a caliber kid like this. I mean, again, I talked about it earlier with the coaching carousel. I mean, this is a longtime TCU commit. We sort of knew and reported last night that things were trending for them to hire Fitch. And he's been at TCU since 2014. Before that, he coached high school in Dallas Fort Worth. He started out
at TCU.
Right, played at TCU and and the NFL, and started as their director of high school relations. So was in the thick of it with recruiting the whole time. He's well known in the DFW area and around the state and the region. So when what my point is there is we had to wait, right? We can't go reach out to a recruit and say, hey, I'm hearing that Coach Fitch is coming to Tech, right? And so we waited till it was announced, and then got with him today and said, hey, what are your thoughts on Coach Fitch and yada yada. And he basically had said that he's family, and they have a great relationship, and then told me about the official visit this weekend. So I think you have a real shot there. Again, like I would tell folks is, with signing day so close, two things. Don't be surprised if some kids stick with what they know, like the same Llewellyn story that we told at the top. and don't be surprised if kids just say, hey, I'm going to wait till February. And so that's not really what people want to hear, because then you've got 2 months of waiting and speculation and updates. But I think this year, more so than any other year with the early signing period, we're going to see, still the majority of kids sign in December. But with all the coaching changes and whatnot, I think you'll see even more kids taking that option to wait until February.
Yeah, and just how many tweets did we see today, about Zarnell Fitch and how good of a hire it was, just from different people. I know I saw several people excited for that. So I just, you think of those TCU teams the last several years, always strong up front. And so, yeah, I mean, again, a great recruiter, was able to get a guy like Dedier committed, and now obviously, he's visiting. And so I would say he's one to watch. Another guy, no longer a TCU commit, but former TCU commit who, has shown a lot of interest, Travon Mcalpin. I hope I'm saying that right. He's a defensive tackle from Alabama, and he actually won't be visiting. He's playing in an all-star game this weekend. But I've talked with him. I've put in my future cast for Tech. That's not a guarantee. He didn't tell me he's committed or anything like that. That's just me reading tea leaves. And, I think that he's just, really close with Coach Fitch. And, if he does plan to sign next week. And so it would be a sight unseen type of deal, which, it would be pretty crazy for a guy with his offer list, but we've seen crazier things happen.
Well, again, I mean, another kid, he has decommitted, and I think that speaks to both, Fitch's relationship, but also the timing involved here, where you can capitalize on that. I mean, knowing that we were going to talk about this tonight, one thing that sticks out to me, Ben, is, you put on the tape for him. And then, of course, Epton Jr., we haven't even gotten to that. I glazed over that when we talked about the visitors for the weekend. Hey, he committed. So I'll let you talk a little bit more about him. But man, if you really can sign that young man, I mean, we're talking about a big defensive tackle, athletic, from SEC territory, right? I mean, we've got to learn a lot more about the young man if this does happen. But you get a linebacker that hits like Elston Jr. and a big old Bubba like him to sign, at the end and flip one from TCU and sign the other one out from under a rock. Wow. I mean, that if you're a Tech fan and you like recruiting, that's got to get you pretty excited, because if I would have told you before the season starts, hey, by the way, you're going to land a couple highly rated 3 stars from Alabama, you would have laughed me off the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it'd be good. They could, fly together and drive together and go home for the holidays together. No, and those are just a couple of the options. There are several others. I posted a big board earlier today. Go check it out. But yeah, I mean, Elston Jr., a guy who, and it's important to note that UCF offered him yesterday. I don't know if that changes anything. He did express interest in going to visit UCF, but we'll see, follow up with him. But yeah, again, 6 foot, 210, so probably a little undersized, but you watch the tape and he's just knocking kids' heads off. He's flying around the field. I mean, he plays aggressive, vicious. He was a guy who was a gem. He had no offers until last month when James Blanchard found him, offered. Now he's up to 5, but he visited over the weekend and committed on Sunday. So he said it felt like home. He enjoyed, being with the coaches, and we'll see. I think, obviously he's committed. He's in a good spot. We'll see if the UCF offer changes anything. Stay tuned, because we'll report on that.
Yep. I can't see at this point, what it changes. Again, we're a week away, and we'll monitor that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I tweeted his tape, I think 3 or 4 times now. I mean, the guy's a missile.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of kids hit hard. I think at that size, when you can stop and change direction, and take such good angles to the ball, I mean, that's stuff that's hard to teach, hard to hone in, especially in a conference like the Big 12, where, I know defense was improved this year, but still going to spread it out. I mean, look, Kitley's coming to the league. Jeff Levy's coming to the league, well, as it's currently constructed, right? But, I just don't buy into it always being these, 25 to 25 games that we saw in the Big 12 championship. So we talked a little bit about the 2 defensive linemen. And you mentioned, you mentioned Neighbors as well. Who else do we need to cover on that list, Ben?
Well, I mean, if we're not doing this again before signing day, which we probably will, Monday or Tuesday, I'm guessing, but a couple offensive linemen, Cade McConnell, Seth Martin. I mean, these are all guys who are going to make decisions in the next week, right? Like they're going to sign either with Tech or some other program. Both of those guys visited. I would say, Gerard Henderson is another defensive lineman who
Right.
Joey McGuire went to see today. He was in the Houston area, went to the Houston TD club, right? So he probably stopped by the school or what have you. But several targets. And then, just we saw this on Twitter last night with the Oregon decommit coaching change Landon Hullaby, the safety who's committed
Right.
there. And then of course throw in the reported hires of Marcel Yates and Tim DeRuyter. I think that would make a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, going back to timing, I mean, Yates especially is a guy that if you can make that happen, he definitely is a solid recruiter, and someone that can clearly land, above average to elite prospects. And so, I think more so than ever, I think that combination is something that I like because, DeRuyter, you get the seasoned defensive coordinator. He's your X's and O's guy. He's your teacher. He's the one that sort of develops the defense. And then, just like, McGuire had said, he wants grinders. He wants guys that can recruit, and I think if you look at it that way, we've already covered Fitch, bookbinders on board. And then you add Yates and DeRuyter. I think in terms of what's available to you and what you can get, I mean, I heard some wild numbers being thrown around, for Knowles out of Oklahoma State. And then when you looked beyond that, you were sort of staring at some, unproven commodities, if you will, and really trying to turn over some rocks. And so I think DeRuyter gives you some proven experience. I mean, this is a guy that was at Texas A&M with Von Miller. I'm not here to say that it's going to be perfect right off the bat, but I think when you have someone with that much experience, the players take notice, the players listen. And then if they can get the right talent in there, I know, I just take McGuire, off face value that he's going to be very involved in the defense. And, he's already been pretty vocal about what he wants and how he wants to do it. And I think you can see that on the recruiting side as well. And, ultimately we just talked about a lot of defensive linemen, Ben. I mean, that's where you want to be when you have enough recruiting activity and enough offers to where you can get multiple guys on campus and know that, okay, if that doesn't work out, then we're going to be able to go to options 2, 3, 4, et cetera. And we're keeping them all, on the hook. And, I think it's interesting so far. It's only been a month, but to see how Blanchard operates in unison with McGuire and how they all recruit together, the staff's not even complete yet. And you're already seeing some of that vision, that coach laid out there, when he first took the job.
Yeah. And that's a big point that you made. I think whenever you said McGuire is going to be involved with the defense, because I talked so much about Zach Kittley and his high scoring offense, which I think, he'll bring in. So, Tech had that under Cliff. I think you'll get, I'm not saying Zach Kittley is Cliff Kingsbury right away, right? He's less proven, but I think you'll get to that level of offense. I trust Joey McGuire and Tim DeRuyter and the staff to, get the defense better than it was under those years. So I think that's where, you potentially have more hope there. But, you didn't even mention Josh Cochran, the new tight ends coach, comes over from Austin P. I had someone, I'm not going to say who, but I had someone message me and say out of all the hires that guy is the one. He's going to be a star. So, I just thought that was interesting. This was, a dad of a player. So I just figured that was interesting. And he was at Baylor too under Rule. So again,
yeah, there's a lot about those guys we don't know, right? I mean,
right.
I think again, we both need to kind of dig into the backgrounds. One of those coaches has his profile picture is like, him as a kid in a Tech jersey. And I don't know, there's a lot of different connections there, but a month in, you're almost there, unofficially you're 100% done with the staff, officially you're about 80 to 90% done. And then going into signing day next week, you've had 2 pretty big weekends when it comes to visits. So I think we'll see where this thing shakes out. What oh my gosh. Excuse me, guys. What
Right.
sorry about that, buddy. What I was trying to breathe there, it didn't work. What is your best guess on the class size?
So you're sitting at 14 right now. You know, I don't know. I mean, I was watching Level and Dickens's podcast. He said 4 to 9 more, right? I don't know how that shakes out. I would say at least a handful more for sure. I think the next week is going to be exciting if you like commits and things like that. There are just too many targets, too many guys that, and Joe McGuire is too good of a recruiter for that to not happen, in my opinion. You're on mute.
I didn't want to hear you guys make you guys listen to me cough. I apologize. So anyway, no, I mean, what is it, 13, 14 right now?
Yeah, 14.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you go look, Ben mentioned it earlier, but there's a big board on the website and it goes position by position. And however you do the math, you try to add a quarterback, you go through each position group and you see those options there. It's clearly O-line, D-line. So building from the inside out. And then some other prospects that quite frankly been, like I said, with the high school playoffs going on and some kids not even signing on the early signing period. I think you could see at least another 2 or 3 that are taken in that January to February timeframe as well. So, I think everything's on the table right now. But we just talked about quite a bit, I guess, at a very high level. Ben, what did we miss? What do you want to mention? What do we need to cover?
It was a good basketball win last night. Did you watch
It was
that?
a good basketball win. I watched the very end. We had soccer practice, so I got home. I didn't know it was still on. Actually, I saw somebody posted. I don't know who that was. The GIF of Frank Beamer, getting excited for 0-0.
The 0-0. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, what does that mean? So then I looked on my phone, it said overtime. And so I turned
Yeah.
it on. But yeah, man, I mean, definitely awesome. I mean, it's for sure basketball season. My little man's in basketball. So we're going through all of that. And it was pretty cool just to kind of show him, teach him what a press was. We're doing just basic ball skills, right? Where you keep your pivot foot and you try to, you do this and you hold the ball. And so I was like, look, that's what he's, Kevin McCullough was doing that, right? And so I was like, see, even the college basketball players do. So no, I mean, try, like if so you're sitting on the couch with a 7-year-old and they say, hey, why we're 6-1 and we're not ranked? Why is Tennessee 6-1 and they're number 13?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to explain that. And you're like, well, are we going to be ranked now? Well, I mean, maybe. I can't promise you, but this is really good that we're doing this and blah, blah, blah. So that was pretty much the discussion after that. But yeah, it looked like it was a knife fight, Ben.
Yeah, it was really good defense by Tech. Some timely shots, I guess, and then overtime went really well. But I think Tech really had to have that one because they lost to Providence, and then they played Gonzaga coming up. There's just not too many of these big non-conference games, so it's good to have one. It'll help you at the end of the year to make the NCAA tournament. I just think TJ Shannon was a star, and then
Yeah.
Daniel Batcho, I think everyone super surprised by his play. 11 rebounds, I think, a couple blocks. I just think he's been very good for a guy. There wasn't a lot of fanfare whenever he committed because he didn't play last year. He was hurt, but really quickly he's a freshman, close to 7-footer who's now becoming one of your best big men. I just think it's pretty impressive what he's done. But this is a football podcast, so we can.
No, yeah. I'm the residential. I don't know anything about Tech basketball, like from a names and a recruit standpoint. But
you don't apologize for beating a 13th ranked Tennessee team.
Exactly. Yeah.
In
no
New York
apologies.
City.
I did see Coach. The funny part about the social media tie-in is Coach Beard, congratulating him, and everybody been like, shut up. I thought that was funny. I mean, predictable, but funny. No, but you mentioned TJ Shannon was a star. And I think, everybody knows in college basketball, it's what it's all about when you get to the end of the season and you're in the tournament. And I thought, some of the shots and some of the stuff he did in overtime was just indicative of, the caliber of player he is. And I mean, Tech's, when he decided to come back, that was a pretty big deal. So
Yes.
people were excited for nights like that where he can take over in a game where points were hard to come by, and all of a sudden you're up 6 to 8 points because of what he's doing on the court. So anyway, yeah, no, it's good to watch. We'll try to update basketball stuff. Too much going on the football side right now. Only thing else that I'll say is it is only Wednesday night, so it wouldn't surprise me to see another visitor or two.
Yes.
But my biggest takeaway is if you can finalize DeRuyter and Yates, this is a staff where I've seen them make investments and hire people before. But from in their prime experienced coaches, I think this has to be up towards the top. And I think McGuire, given all the different circumstances and the sheer amount of jobs that were open, kind of twists and turns, I think that this is something to be proud of from a first swing at it, especially with Jones and Fitch, like we talked about. You've got to combat the Texas recruiting, and they've done that head on. So anyway, we'll talk more next week. I think we'll have to talk probably Tuesday, Ben. We'll have to preview National Signing Day, and then reconnect on the weekend and kind of see where all the chips fell. Yes or no? Does Tech get Quinn Ewers on the spot? Hot seat, Ben. Go.
Oh man, no. But
okay.
But don't shoot me.
No, they won't. Well, that's the end of the pod. Everybody liked the levels into pod. That's what you get with Ben. He's Ben Golan. I'm Matt.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, there you go. This is a Lubbock or Leave It podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys soon.